we are all kind of making this up as we go. And if you're willing to do the work, and if you're willing to show up and be consistent, like really beautiful things can happen. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. And I think working on this project helped me finally let go of that need for perfectionism that I held so tightly to for so much of my life.
This is a group of women who have become sisters through this process, including Dina and myself. And really, it is so important to build community for yourself right now in midlife. I think it's probably one of the most important things to do for yourself.
I think I'm much more comfortable at this stage in my life with being vulnerable, because I'm not really worried so much about what people think of me.
Welcome to Late Bloomer Living, the podcast where we're all about shaking up our ideas about what it means to grow older. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your resident age agitator and play instigator. Around here, we believe midlife is the perfect time to play, to reinvent, and bloom like you mean it. Let's go. Have you spent most of your life editing yourself? Trying to be the good girl, keeping the peace, pleasing everyone, trying not to take up too much space? One of the gifts of midlife and getting older is realizing that we don't have to do that anymore. Midlife is an invitation to loosen the grip of people-pleasing and just be yourself more honestly, more fully, more freely than ever before. And today's conversation is about telling the truth anyway. I'm joined by writers and editors Dina Aronson and Dina Alvarez. We got the two Dinas with us today. They are co-editors of Midlife Private Parts. It's a bold, deeply honest collection of essays about what really happens when women stop editing themselves in midlife. So if you've ever thought, is it just me? This conversation is for you. Dina and Dina, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so excited. This has been a conversation that feels like a long time coming. When did we met back in October at Life in the Pause, which was such a cool event. It was great to meet you guys there. It was one of the few things that I've gone to that has been an in-person thing. And I normally cringe at those in-person things. I'm like, I get all introverty and all that stuff. But it was great, great, great meeting you guys and so many other people there. What an event.
Yeah, they're great gatherings too. And I think we all feel that way to some extent walking into those rooms.
Mm-hmm.
But, to your point, we get to midlife and I think we shed a lot of those fears and we can show up as, ourselves. And that allows for some real authentic connection in those spaces.
It does. I'm 57 years old and I'm just now learning that everybody else in the room also feels uncomfortable. And so I'm challenging myself when I go into those kinds of situations these days to just be the person that makes somebody else comfortable. And somehow that shifts everything for me. Now, you guys met, what was it? Was it in 2021 that you met?
Yes, we met in May of that year at a very unexpected dinner. I had actually reached out to someone that I had seen on social media who I thought would be a nice person to get acquainted with, and I DM'd her and I was like, hey, we're both in the city, would you like to have dinner? And she said yes, and she in turn invited someone else who then invited Dina. So it was, I always say we met on a midlife friendship blind date for women who really didn't know each other. And it just kind of, evolved and took off from there. Our friendship was very kind of took off from the start. We really came together feeling like we should do something together, but really didn't know what and didn't even really discuss it until I think, Dina, like a year later was when we really seriously began in earnest to really talk about putting an anthology together of midlife women's stories.
I think I read somewhere that you described it as just feeling instantly comfortable together. How rare is that at this point in our lives to meet somebody and have that kind of connection?
I mean, I'll jump in and say, I think it is rare, but I also think, because we bring our whole selves to situations that you kind of know right away, it's like, I think we know ourselves so much better
Yeah.
than we did when we were young, and you also have this feeling that there's less time to waste. And so I think sometimes you just there you recognize that connection. And I always like to go back and add, we had this dinner, we had that instant, like, just kindred spiritness that evening. And literally, like, days later, we ran into each other on the street in New York City,
Oh,
which,
wow.
kind of
Love the
cemented.
serendipity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, not to get too woo woo, but sometimes the universe does nudge and speak. And, there was definitely something there.
You were both writers at that point, right? You had that in common. What else was it, do you think, that kind of pulled you guys together?
Well, I think we were just really open to the friendship as a friendship first, and then we got to know each other's strengths, and we both do like to write, and we both were in the midlife space, midlife women, and really looking around at the women who we were part of a group with and seeing how different in a good way our lives were becoming in midlife, and also wanting to understand midlife ourselves. There's no one way to do anything, especially in midlife. So wouldn't it be nice to put these stories together in a book, and edit them and have the beauty of the process and the collaboration? And so I think we just had an openness to figuring it out, and the friendship just helped propel it even faster than we could have imagined.
What was the first germ of like, maybe we should do a book?
We each had ideas for different kinds of books, and we talked about books a lot and writing. And so, like, I at the time, and I realized it wasn't that long ago, but like, I had this idea for a book on menopause, like what to expect when you can no longer expect, sort of thing. And there really were no books even 5 years ago, and so, I don't know. And then, Dina, I'll let you talk about your other idea. And I think eventually, as we started to talk about the things that were going on around us and what we were seeing: women starting businesses, women starting podcasts, women sort of opening up and really stepping into this piece of life, this new, there's a new spaciousness, and women were taking it up. It just seemed like something we wanted to explore, and there were no books out there telling women's stories really like this. There were, we've got one, I think there's one piece of the internet that's like, rah rah, go midlife, and then there's another piece where it's like, wah wah, like, welcome to midlife.
Right.
This is the end. And I think, like, it just seemed important to find this middle ground where we could capture all of the incredible freedom and liberty, but also, like, speak to some of the hard, because some of it is very hard. And I think,
Absolutely. Yeah.
when you see these stories of triumph, you don't see all the stuff that goes into the triumph,
Oh,
right?
I wish people would share that more. I
Yeah,
really do.
felt important to do that, and to
Yeah.
show that, like, it can be difficult, and we all are going through a lot of transition. It can be very disorienting, but you can find your footing, and then it can be pretty damn great, and great all through. So I just, I think it was important to capture the whole picture.
Yeah.
And also, there's a beauty in doing it as an anthology.
What was it about doing an anthology that made you feel like this was the right way to go with this book?
I mean, I had been thinking about an anthology on a different topic related to women and our mothers, and I had been doing a book proposal and workshopping it. So I've always loved anthologies. I've read many of them. I have some on my bookshelf, and I just feel that it's a great way to share stories where you could just pick it up, read a story, move on. It's not like picking it up in the middle of a novel that you walked away from 4 days later. So I
Mm.
love the idea of anthologies. And also sharing individual stories was very important to us. It was not, Dina and I did not want to sit down and write our own midlife story, but that never even came up. We really were interested in individual stories that women could share on a variety of themes that we all go through. So it just seemed like a perfect fit. Like,
Yeah,
why not
I
just
want to
do it?
call out some of the themes. So just looking at your table of contents, you've got chapter 1 is about shifting identities, getting older and bolder. I love that. You've got Empty Nest in chapter 2. You've got Hotter Than Ever. There's the menopause, perimenopause challenges that we face. I love this one because it speaks to me personally, which is chapter 4, To Hell with the Timeline on late blooming. Hello. Chapter 5, Never Too Late on midlife reinvention. Again, hello. I could go on and on, but it's you've really hit the themes and the hot points of what it is to be in this transitional phase. And I love that you've brought together a variety of voices to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, you want women, and one of the main goals of this is for, women to feel seen and heard and understood through, a time that again can feel a little disorienting, right? And so I think, having all of these different voices, it brings that message home that you're not alone, because hopefully when you read this book, you'll see pieces of yourself in all of the stories. I think there's something relatable in all of them. And there's something very comforting. It's like a balm to know that, that you're not alone. And, it can feel lonely at this stage.
Also, I just want to add the idea that there is no one single way to get through any of these situations in midlife.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I wrote The Not So Invisible Woman, where I feel more visible than ever at midlife. And so there's a backstory to that and why. And then you have another woman who wrote about how she does feel invisible, how she goes to a restaurant and the waiter doesn't come over. So, seeing every single chapter has a little bit of two sides to every coin. And if there is a chapter, like for instance, Dina wrote about loss and grief, but she writes about it from two angles, right? So each chapter really comes at it from two sides, which is nice. It's not just this one-sided, one look at reinvention or sexual pleasure, or like it really encompasses the entire view of what it could be and how it affects each woman differently.
I think these stories also show that we're all sort of learning on the job. Nobody has this all figured out, right? And a lot of our stories, women sort of walk you through their process and like how they got to, the good part. It's all good, but there's just, I think there's this idea when we're sitting back and feeling stuck, I don't know how to do this. And everyone, you go on social media and people seem like they just have all the answers. And, these stories show you that none of us have all the answers. It's work and it's living and figuring it out as we go.
And it's ongoing. So I had a key moment as I was approaching my 50s, which led me to starting this podcast. It was a moment of going, oh, I need to take better care of myself. And I established a morning routine. And I'll call it an aha moment, which was one small change that I made to get up every morning and meditate and move my body. Led to a whole sea change of things. But here's the thing, I'm in the middle of another something, a transitional liminal space. I don't even know what it is yet. And it's not one and done. You can have an aha moment and then you get through it and it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's all the things, and then boom, you're to the other side of it. You might float there for a few minutes before you know it. It's like, oh, but wait a minute. I think there's something more here. It's crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And very relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. It's like, and I think sometimes when we use the word reinvention, it feels so big and like, okay, now I've reinvented. And I like to think of it differently. It's like reimagining, continuing to learn, continuing to go down the road, being open to the unfolding, being open to the new. You're never done. You're never done. And you don't have to, just because you've done one thing your whole life doesn't mean you can't do something else. Just because you've reinvented yourself and are, starting anew doesn't mean you might not shift and evolve, a year or 2 or 5 later. So
how boring would it be if we were all done? Like, why are we still here?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also believe in midlife we get a spark of creativity. For instance, Yvonne, you started your podcast in midlife. Dina and I did the book in midlife. We have many women who wrote for the book who went on also to become podcasters, to start jewelry lines, to I mean, it runs the gamut, right? So the midlife growth spurt is something that happens to every woman. It's just an organic process.
Absolutely. And it does come with loss. And I think what you were talking about, you've got the one side that you see from people, which is rah, rah, pro aging kind of thing. And then you've got the really where more people land, I think, is on the other side of things. It's all downhill from here. And oh, my aching this, my aching that. It's often framed, aging and midlife often framed as decline or loss. Where do you see power or humor or liberation showing up instead?
I'll jump in. I think it's the way that we're living. First of all, I will say that the other sort of larger goal of this book was to shift that narrative, right? Like to shift to show through like the reality of our lives that that is nonsense. And we've all sort of grown up with this ingrained messaging. I mean, you can't walk into a Sephora without like anti-age, like in hot flashing lights, like age is bad. The proof is in our lives and in our reimagining and in our showing up and finding this new creativity and space to reimagine what life can look like.
Yeah.
And I think we can also thank longevity, right? We're living in a time where we have all the tools we need. If we want to live longer, we can exercise, we can, work on our minds, we can be creative. And so I see liberation everywhere I turn for midlife women because we can expand our world. We have the internet where we can learn about anything we want. We can study more. We can remain curious. And so I think all of that combined is what actually emboldens us, gives us freedom, makes us stronger. Knowledge is power, and we have more of it now than I think we ever had, right? We could look up anything in a second. So for me, midlife has been nothing really but freedom and liberation. Empty nest. All of a sudden, you have this extra time on your hand where you can go out and look for hobbies or meet new friends or create a podcast or whatever it is that you want. So I think the tools that we have now that we're living longer really are enabling us to move forward in a freer and a more emboldened fashion than our mothers or grandmothers could ever dream of doing.
Yeah, spot on, spot on. I will go back to something that you were talking about, Dina, the idea of reinvention being this big thing. When I started the podcast, I think I was very much looking at the idea of reinvention from an idea of self-improvement, becoming a better version of myself. And what I have learned along the way is somebody said this, actually, I can't take credit for it, but it blew my mind open when I heard this, that reinvention isn't about changing yourself, it's about changing how you think about yourself.
Hmm.
And that hit me right to my core. And it made me realize that I don't have to improve myself. I don't have to change myself. I need to let more of what's already been here all this time come out. And going back to the idea of invisibility, since I have embraced the whole idea of having a podcast and talking about this and with more people, I feel less and less and less invisible.
I love that.
I feel much more ready to take up space in the world and joyfully. I look at myself in the mirror right now, and yeah, I'm older and I have more wrinkles and things are sagging and all this stuff. But I'm looking at myself in the mirror with more kindness these days. And I look at myself and go, hey, you're looking pretty good today, lady. It has all through my 40s, I would look in the mirror and beat myself up
Yeah.
terribly. You know, it's so liberating to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, and I think that mindset and the way we think and the way we talk to ourselves, it's so important to be aware of those things. Like I have this, it was like a graffiti art thing I pulled off of Instagram years ago, and it says, "Don't believe everything you think."
Yes, one of my favorite
And
quotes.
Yeah, and I love that because and as personally, I think when I was feeling very stuck in my 40s and like my life was good. I had my own business, I had a great husband, great thriving stepkids, but like I was just there was something missing and I didn't know how to get to where I didn't even know how to think about what I wanted, but I knew that I needed something different. I just felt very stuck and I've always loved to write, but in my mind I was like, well, you have no bylines. Who's going to take you seriously?
Hmm.
You're not a writer, you were a lawyer, and then I don't know, at some point I was just like, if I don't take this step, I'm never going to take this step. And something's flipped and I just said, I'm doing this. And I set up a blog and I went, and but I had to let go of some of that thinking in order to get there. And I think that's a key for all of
Yeah.
us is to start to, stop beating ourselves up, figure out how to quiet that inner critic, whether it's meditation or yoga or life coach, session or whatever it is. I think that's really the first step to making any kind of improvement, whatever you want to call it, reinvention, improvement. Yeah.
Yvonne, I love your story. You know, anyone listening, that story you tell about looking in the mirror in your 40s and not being happy, but seeing yourself now and being happy, it's such a testament to what happens in midlife. You know, it's not just outside freedom, it's the internal liberation that you gave yourself, you know. So anyone who's listening should take that story as, you know, the future is just filled with positive opportunities and feeling good about ourselves. So
Yeah.
I just want to say I really love that.
Thank you. And actually, the truth is, as I'm listening to you call that back to me, I was never comfortable looking in the mirror. Like I would always look in the mirror and see what I wished was better, you
Mm.
know? And I don't know, I've somehow have released that and it is very liberating. I don't know why. Um, I want to talk about the process of doing this book. When did you know that this was like, no, this needs to happen? Was it from the very beginning when you started talking about this?
It came a little bit later. You know, Dina and I had, I mean, we really became good friends. Like, we had a year of like really talking and having conversations and understanding where each other stood in their own personal, you know, what Dina wanted to do, what I wanted to do. And then, you know, there really came a moment where I said to Dina, you know, we should really think about this further and really let's talk about putting these stories out. Like we both wanted to do something, and this just organically felt like the right thing. And it kind of, Yvonne, just came together in a way that I don't think either one of us could really explain. I don't know, Dina, if you want to add to that. It just was a moment of two kindred spirits really saying, you know, let's share these women's stories.
I think once we decided to do it, we went to it. Like we just started, we started, I've got lists of like potential names. We just went right into getting work done. We started reaching out to women that were interesting to us. And again, I don't know that I would have had the courage to do it 10 years ago, just sort of like, as I like to say, sliding into DMs, and not worrying if the person thought I was weird or, you know, crazy or invading their privacy or whatever. Like we're very honest. And I think I'm much more comfortable at this stage in my life. And I know this is a lot of women I talk to feel the same with being vulnerable, because I'm not really worried so much about what people think of me. Like I know my intention and, I'm going to take the steps I need to take to get there. So we just started connecting with women and, a community pretty quickly started to form around this. And there was the other thing I'll say is once we started talking to women, the momentum was just crazy because people were so excited about it. Like Tina, we didn't really get any no's. We got like, the timing isn't great.
Yeah.
Keep you posted. But women were like, oh my God, yes, we need this. We need this. We need to tell our stories.
And I do want
So,
to add in terms of the
yeah,
process, like Dina was more midlife focused, right?
yeah.
Her blog, she knew she wanted midlife. I was more anthology storytelling focused. Not that and I think that combination of the two together is what really made it take off. Because I think that was your question, like what was the crumb, what really made it take off. And I think it was just two women who have, one was more centered into midlife, and that was kind of her lane, and another woman who was really driven by the idea of anthologies and stories, and then just kind of bringing those two together.
I've got the word mixology is coming up. Like it was like
Yeah.
mixing a good
Yes,
cocktail or
that's what it was.
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, it's true. I will say what drove me to that midlife space is what continued to motivate me through that process and continues to motivate me, which is even though we're talking about it more, we weren't at all, and we still have so much work to do. And I think actually looking at different stories and how women are like approaching the time and how they're doing it, it can be really hard for other women to see what's possible for their lives. And like that is such a driver is like, I think both of us, we see what's possible and we want other women to see this and to feel it, and not to buy into or to continue with the internalized ageism, right? Like it's really hard to see what's possible when you're not seeing it out there in the world. And that's what drove me to midlife, the midlife space. And I'm just glad that we had this chemistry and the mixology. We made a beautiful cocktail of a book.
Exactly. Well, what did you learn about each other through the process? I mean, you co-editing takes you from friendship to a whole other kind of relationship. Was there anything that you guys learned about each other above and beyond? I imagine there must have been.
I mean, I think we worked together really well. There were days we were on Zoom for 10 hours. I mean, we just worked really well. We're very connected. We're very respectful of each other. Our ideas, something that didn't work for me, Dina would be like, okay, I get it. And then we would kind of shift it and work. And things that didn't work for Dina, we would try and shift and work. I mean, but it was a very easy process. Putting a book together is a lot of work, but working together, I think we were very lucky. It just worked well.
Yeah, it was very natural, Yvonne. Like there was no forced, anything about it. It was, I think we both learned that we're great collaborators. I'd never collaborated at this level. And so having the core team, the two of us, being able to just so organically work together, Dina used the word like respect. Like I think we just really respect each other. I think we're both comfortable being vulnerable together. You have to be to do a project like this. You have to sort of bare yourself to your partner. I think we learned we both have very patient husbands because Dina's not exaggerating. Editing this was a big task, a joyful task, but time consuming. And we would literally be on a Zoom for 10 hours on a Sunday or Saturday. So I don't know. I feel really lucky and grateful to have met somebody that, just understands me. I understand her just really well and naturally.
Yeah.
So
What was your editorial North Star like in deciding what stayed, what needed to not be part of the book? When you were making those decisions, what mattered the most to you guys?
I mean, I used to say, and I still feel that way, when we asked women to write, the intention was always that, they wrote in a way that was cathartic for themselves because we're asking them to write and we want them to feel like they're getting something out. And we want them to write in service to other women. And they all got the assignment, every single one of them. They really wrote in a way that was both true to themselves, honest, and really would help other women see a specific situation in their light, but also give them, tools to kind of work it out for themselves also, or to say, well, I wouldn't have worked that way, but I can see why she worked that way. So there was kind of like a vulnerability, as Dina said before. I think that was what we were hoping to accomplish in the stories. And everyone really pretty much came through. I don't know, Dina, if there was some, I mean, I don't recall really feeling any story wasn't a good fit per se.
no. I mean, the way we started that process is really sort of brainstorming across a spectrum of topics and coming up with what we thought, would be sort of most representative of all of the things. I mean, we could have included a lot more. Um, I think Dean and I both agree that one area where we would have loved to have had an essay was in like caretaking, because there's so much dealing with like aging parents at this age. I mean, editorially, in terms of that piece of it, we thought a lot about what it, what were these sort of pillars that we wanted to touch that we felt would make women feel the most seen, and understood through these years and these transitions. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it was the women really, as Dina said, got the assignment. So
How did you create that safe space? Because clearly you did. Was there some way that you guys had in mind to make this a safe space for the women to share?
I think many of the women just were so happy to be able to share their story. And I think Dina and I also come across as being two women that you can trust. I mean, we were very open with them, we were very honest with them. Some of the women we knew before, so, not over the course of 10 years, but over a course of a year, we got to know them. And I think they were very open to us and they were very open to the idea and they loved the idea of midlife stories. So it really was a very easy thing to pull together with women because they all felt like, oh my gosh, we need this book. This we have to be a part of this. Or even if they said, I can't write for you, but they would tell us about someone else. So, we all created this shared midlife space together. It wasn't just Dina and I, saying, hey, can you write for us? It was these women saying, I'd love to, or I can't, but here's someone who can. And so there was such an enormous beauty in the collaboration of this project because of that. I'd love to say that Dina and I, created this beautiful safe space, and we did, but they did also. They trusted us, and that's enormous.
like we did cultivate, like we spoke, we got on Zooms with everyone. We showed up at events like we talked about where we met Yvonne. And it wasn't, you know, sort of task because it was because we wanted to be in community with women and get to know them and share this space with them. And so I think, like Dina said, like it formed this beautiful community. I mean, what's so cool now is that these women are all, they're collaborating together. Friendships have formed. We actually brought everyone together in the midst of this long before the book was done. We brought everyone together on a group Zoom so they could all meet each other. And so I think it was just, there was a cultivation of trust through the process.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Did working on this book shift how you individually talk about your own midlife, either publicly or privately?
That's a great question. I think I'm even more comfortable now being vulnerable. To me, vulnerability, and there's been brilliant work done on this topic by Brene Brown, and I love her, and I wish I had tapped into that sooner in my life, because I feel like vulnerability is like the gateway to connection. It is the portal to authentic human connection in life. And I learned to be even more, I think, comfortable showing up as I am. And I also learned that I don't have to have all the answers to do something really good.
I love that.
I learned that, like, we are all kind of making this up as we go. And if you're willing to do the work, and if you're willing to show up and be consistent, like, really beautiful things can happen. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. And I think working on this project helped me finally let go of that need for perfectionism that I held so tightly to for so much of my life.
I mean, I'm an introvert and I've always been an observer and I've always asked a lot of questions. And I think one of the things that this book has made me want to do even more is learn even more about women's midlife experiences. I mean, I ask women all the time, what's menopause been like for you? So I've always been curious, but I'm more curious than ever now. Like, I really ask women a lot of questions. Like, when I meet a woman, I want to understand her in ways that I didn't realize before that I could ask these questions. And I think because I read so many essays and stories, it's just kind of evolved and continued. And I am very curious, how do we get through this part in life? What are the positives that you see? What are the negatives that you see? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be in 5 years? Like, there's a level of curiosity that has really just gone over the top for me.
I love that answer. Yeah. Great answers, both of you. I love the idea of getting curious. So for people who are listening, do you guys have any advice for anybody who feels the urge maybe to tell their midlife story but doesn't know where to start?
You don't have to be a writer to pull out a notebook and, spill. And I think people who journal regularly, and I'd like to tell you I was one of them, but I'm not. And I'm working on that because I think it's such an important tool for self-discovery and self-awareness. But I think if you want to tell your story and understand yourself better, write it down. Take 15 minutes in the morning with your coffee and start writing. And also, it's really important to have, you don't have to have a giant friend group, but it's important to have people in your life that you can be yourself with, that make you, feel safe. And so talk to your friends. I think a lot of times we hold on to things because we feel shame. We don't know how we'll be perceived. And find people, and we all have friends in our lives, and if we don't have friends we can feel that way with, we need to ask why, and we need to find them, and allow yourself to be with people that way. Allow yourself to be honest and to share openly, because it's so healing to be able to look at somebody and have them say to you, "Oh my God, me too," or something to that effect that just makes you feel like home.
Many places online looking for content, right? There, especially midlife women's stories. You can write a 500, 700 word essay and just submit it to places or pitch it. There's the Ethel, there's AARP, there's Gloria. There's so many, Newsweek, Boston Globe. I mean, you can tell your story and, find somebody who can help you edit it if you're not in this kind of editorial writing space. And you know what? Send it off and submit it. Sometimes crazy things happen. You think, oh, they're never going to take my story. And guess what? They do. Like we had a couple of the essays excerpted, right? Dina, Katie Couric
Mhm.
Media took one of the menopause stories, and these were not things we expected. We wanted a book of women's stories, and we had it. And then these opportunities came up. So if you really are someone who wants to tell your story and you want to put it out there and help other women, there certainly are many places online that you could submit to. And I encourage people, and I agree, journaling is like, I journal and I think it is so helpful. Also, The Artist's Way is an amazing book for women that are looking to write. I can't recommend it enough. And it's the kind of book, don't take it out of the library. Like I can actually say this, you should buy it. So yeah, I think all the women writers and any writer should just put their story out there if they're compelled to do it and they want to give writing a shot, I say do it. You might surprise yourself.
I just want to add that the excerpt in Katie Couric Media came from a woman who is not a writer by trade. So
Correct.
Oh, I love that.
That's
I
right.
love
yeah,
that. Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. What do you hope that a woman feels after she finishes reading the book?
I hope she feels seen. I hope she feels full of sort of possibility, that her life has possibility, particularly if it's somebody who's feeling kind of stuck or feeling kind of negative about midlife and getting older. I hope that they see light at the end of the tunnel if they're dealing with young kids and they're perimenopausal and everything is just like crazy in their lives. I hope that they can see the path. I hope that, this can feel like a little bit of a roadmap for them, even though it's not prescriptive in any way. It's just sort of seeing and how other women do it, seeing, I think, as Dina said earlier, that there's not one way. There's, um, I just hope it makes them feel, maybe what I'm saying is I hope it makes them feel hopeful, seen, understood, and full of hope.
I would like to welcome them to the sisterhood after
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
finish reading the book,
I
because
love it.
that's really what it is. This is a group of women who have become sisters through this process, including Dina and myself. And really, it is so important to build community for yourself right now in midlife. I think it's probably one of the most important things to do for yourself. Be a little vulnerable, reach out to other women. The stories are a testament to this being a time of change, but also growth. And we don't grow alone. We grow in groups. We learn from each other. We take care of each other. So I think for me, it would just I hope they put the book down and they do feel like there is a sisterhood out there, and they will find they have these women in the book, and then hopefully they will go out and create their own if they don't have one.
I have to say that doing this podcast, has been a side benefit to doing it. And I didn't start this podcast to make friends, but that is what has happened. And I feel like I'm going to get a little bit clumped, but I feel like I am surrounded by examples of women who are living out loud and living their best lives. And it gives me constant inspiration to be surrounded by people like you and a lot of the other guests that I've had on. It's overwhelming, clearly. Woo!
Feel the same way with,
Yeah.
meeting you and the women in the circle that we have created, and through this book we feel, Dina, I can say this. I mean, we never expected this book to, I mean, we have made great friends through this book. It has been the most amazing experience for both of us, and it's similar to your experience with the podcast.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say too, Dina Aronson, you had mentioned, if you don't have those friends, I'll just throw in my own 2 cents on this. Go out and do something that you're interested in or curious about, and you're going to find yourself next to somebody else who's also curious about that thing, and that's a great way to meet somebody who you can then feel seen with.
Absolutely. And, as I said earlier, showing up at some of these midlife events has been revelatory for me. It's not just in the learning, because there's incredible experts that show up at these things, but like the real beauty has been in connecting with other women who are also there because they have the same questions. They're craving community. I think you will find that all of us at a certain stage of life are craving community. And even if we've been blessed to have amazing friends coming through life, and I have been, um, there's something about meeting people at this stage of life, and you're not in a place because it's convenient, like because we met at work, because our kids are friends. You're there because you want to be there, and you're like choosing it. And there's
Yeah.
just something really real about that. So yeah, go out and find them.
It's amazing. What feels most, I don't know, alive for you right now, creatively or personally, after bringing this project into the world? Has it stirred up any new ideas?
We do some panel discussions. We have one coming up in March, and we have enjoyed that. So we like the idea of continuing to share stories and bringing women into a welcoming space. And I think Dean and I both want to continue writing in the midlife space.
I'm personally still sort of resetting, but I'm also super motivated to like figure out ways to carry these stories, through, to continue, like Dina said. I mean, when we go on these, tours and meet with women, the discussions are incredible. And sometimes I think we maybe take for granted that, we're all kind of talking about this now, menopause is out in the open. But when you kind of go outside of your bubble, you see that women are really hungry to have these conversations, and I think hungry to be in community together. And so that part of it has been very gratifying, and like sort of thinking about ways to continue to do that, and continue to reach women. And I'll just say it out loud, I think it'd be interesting to find a way to put these stories out in a different treatment, like a limited series of sorts. I sometimes pick up these books. I read these essays still because I love them. And, one of the essays starts with the protagonist screaming at her husband that she wants a divorce in the driveway. I could see that on screen, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of really cool and creative places to go. A lot of women have reached out to us to say, we want to write if you do another book. And so I feel like maybe that's in the cards. And we have already an incredible slate of writers for this next book. So yeah, it
Fantastic.
stirs a lot of creative juices for sure. It has.
How can people get a hold of the book?
Any, online resource, and you can also find Dina and I at midlifeprivateparts.com, where you can order the book through there also, and you can learn about a little more about Dina and I. You can learn about the writers as well. We have their bios up there. I have a Substack called A Few Good Things, and I'm also on Instagram at the right styles. And I'll let Dina share her.
Yeah, yeah. And I would really encourage women to go to the website because you can buy the book there. But really, we have 25 incredible contributors, and I want people to know them. because they're amazing women and they're doing amazing things in this life. So go to www.midlifeprivateparts.com to learn about them, buy the book. You can find me on Substack. It's Patina with Dina Aronson. And then my Instagram is Patina_life.
Okay, fantastic. And I will have, if you're driving right now listening, I'll have links in the show notes for you so you can find both Dinas at their respective places and get you to midlifeprivateparts.com.
Thank you so much for having us, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you for listening. I, for one, this conversation has been such a reminder that midlife and getting older in general isn't a time to hold back. It's a time to tell the truth more freely and become more yourself, if anything. So I want to thank Dina Aronson and Dina Alvarez for the honesty and the heart behind your book, Midlife Private Parts. Share this episode with a friend who might need that reminder. You're not alone. It is never too late. And stop editing yourself. Thank you for being here. And until next time, bloom like you mean it.